Okay, so we talked about our break a little bit. That's always fun. So this chapter is it's kind of fun in a way because it's not as intense as like the inside of a cell or a biochemical pathway. It's about things that you can readily observe as you walk through the woods, watch through the Discovery Channel, or even play with your dog. We'll talk about that a little bit too. So we're looking at animal behavior here, and it seems like it's not something we normally talk about in general biology. It's more of a zoology topic. By the way, we are offering zoology next year. So I got talked into saying yes to teaching that, so we will be doing some fun. That'll be a fun class. So I don't know if you guys will need to take it after doing all of this, but it'll be available.
We're all going to be super seniors
just for that class. You going to come back for it? Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to be talking about animal behavior. Any action that can be observed and described is what we're talking about when we say behavior. You guys behave all sorts of ways. I won't talk about many of them, but I hear you talk about them often. That's called pubescent behavior. There is actually a whole study of adolescent behavior out there. But when we talk about behavior in this class, we're talking about how different animals in this case behave. Nature is inherited. We understand that. And then there are these other things that are caused by the environment. They would be more of the nurturing or the environmental causes or behaviors. And that's that whole nature-nurture debate. Okay? A lot of psychologists tend to get into it in ways that aren't very scientific. In this class, we stick to just the observable behaviors that we can actually infer cause and effect from. So genes, yes. Yeah, my sister is actually a zoologist and a marine biologist at the Minnesota State Zoo. I don't know if we can leave the state, but I want to. We'll say that. I don't know if I can do like a motor coach and have the kids sleep on the way home. That might be something I'll try to plan for that. Because I don't have an inn like that anywhere else where we actually all be able to go behind the scenes and do the back end of an entire zoo. For free, anyway. Okay. All right, so genes, we'll need some, yeah, that's what I need. Postgraduate chaperoning. So genes influence development of neural and hormonal mechanisms controlling behavior. You guys, obviously, I can even speak to my own development. There were times where, different hormones controlled various behaviors. Especially young men with testosterone makes you very impulsive and things of that nature. So you just say things sometimes. You don't even think about it, right? Okay. Women, they tend to worry and think more about what they say. That has to do with a whole other back-end portion of hormones. So today, most evidence points to a conclusion that most behaviors have a genetic basis. And when I talk about testosterone, we know that's basically a protein being made, right? Okay, or a hormone, in that case, a fat. Not a protein. But there's a genetic code to create that. Okay? So that is built into who you are genetically. Which goes to the nature portion, not the nurture, right? Although you start to talk to fluffy, I don't want to call psychologists fluffy, but they start to lend those things more to a nurture thing. When you look at them and you say, no, that's not nurture, that's that boy's testosterone or that female's estrogen causing that behavior. That is genetics. So experiments that suggest that behavior has a genetic basis are what we're looking at here. And a lot of these are done through case studies. The first one is a nest-building behavior in lovebirds. So Fisher's lovebirds, this is a study that's kind of a classic study that's been done in biology, and peach-faced lovebirds build nests and carry leaves in different ways. The hybrid offspring between these two species, they had difficulty carrying nesting materials because they each did it their own specific way, and when you blended them, they couldn't reproduce, not because their genetics didn't match necessarily. Well, it was indirectly because of that, but it was more because the two behaviors didn't coincide into a functional behavior genetically. It's kind of weird when you think about it. It'd be like, I carry sticks with my feet, you carry them with our arms, you mix our genes together, and all of a sudden, we can't carry a stick, or our offspring can't, we could say. And then you have food choice and garter snakes. We have garter snakes in Michigan. Who's caught garter snakes as a child? Right? Okay. Put them in a 5-gallon bucket, take them around, play with them. No? Maybe. Some people are scared of snakes, I know. We used to have snake, crayfish, and spider wars. We'd just catch them all and put them in a bucket. So inland populations are aquatic and feed on frogs and fish, while coastal populations are terrestrial and feed primarily on slugs. That's kind of weird when you think about it. You don't really think of a garter snake eating a frog. I think of them eating frogs all the time, but not fish, right? That's kind of weird. But think about, if you talk about coastal, we're talking about like the Great Lakes, right? And now you're talking, where are the fish in the Great Lakes? Not too many right up by shore, right? And there's not that median where that marshland, unless you're at Topical Marsh, we're kind of an exception to that. So then twin studies in humans, where human twins are separated at birth and raised under different environmental conditions, have been shown to have similar food preferences, whereas activity patterns and select mates with similar characteristics. And I know I skipped part of the first one, where inland populations refuse to consume slugs in the laboratory. However, hybrid offspring between those two species accept slugs as food sources. So basically what they're saying is when you mix two different genetics, you get a new behavior, completely independent of the environment. So the question here that I would ask you guys after talking about all this, twins, garter snakes, and lovebirds, is, why is it looking like this? This is really bugging me. They changed the way it looks. I got to click twice now. I'm not liking that with Paradox. If I made the statement that behavior is caused by genetics, what would you tell me? Would you agree or disagree? Somewhat of a trick question, isn't it? A little bit. I'd probably leave mine right. I'd put mine right about here. Let me explain that to you just a little bit. I have 2 daughters, right? And you really don't realize this till you have your own kids. You're like, whoa, these 2 things are very different. Like, very different. Night and day different. My 2 daughters were raised identically. Not identically, but the same 2 parents, right? One is the most, like, kinesthetic, like, cannot hold still child. Jumps off the wall. She would eat her dinner with 1 foot on the table, 1 on the chair, and if she had a 3rd one, it would be like twirling some baton, and while she's trying to eat her dinner. The other one will calmly sit there, eat her dinner, and then read a book, right? We raised them the same, right? Two exact, not exact, but very similar environments. So there must be a genetic component there, and obviously it's the mixture of our 2 gene pools. So even within the same species, you can have a variant behavior based on genetics, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're getting at. So it can. I would say it drives more behavior than what we as a human population think as a whole. Okay? Now, if you ask a biologist, they're going to be like me. They're going to put it right over here. If you ask a psychologist, they put you over here because they're all based on fluffy feelings and things like that. Okay? I like the evidence stuff that puts you over here. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with psychology at all. We need it to help us feel good about ourselves and to fix, our psychological disorders, things like that. But when we talk about what we can actually prove, it shows that behavior is much more genetic than what we used to think. Okay? Remember, Sigmund and Freud did not have a genetic profile when they were doing their research and all of their studies. And I don't even like to talk about psychologists. I don't mind them, I just don't think it's science. Pavlov's pretty good. He was kind of a biological psychologist in a way. He needed evidence. I like that guy. So experiments that suggest that behavior has a genetic basis, where you look at egg-laying behavior in marine snails. Egg-laying hormone in the marine snail, aplysia, has been isolated and demonstrated to control all of the components of egg-laying in this species. So there's a hormone that will regulate whether or not it lays eggs. And then the nurturing behavior in mice, whereas the maternal behavior in mice is dependent upon a single gene termed FOSB. And scientists actually have turned this gene on and off in both mice and rats. What happens when they turn it off? Let's just see if you guys have even talked. Why is this not showing up? I don't like having to click twice. It's bugging me. What happens, do you think, when you turn this off? You guys understand the gene. You make it so that they don't transcribe that gene anymore. Or you destroy and mutate the gene in the mouse. So it will not work, the FOSB. Call it the mom gene. There was a huge paper that was written on this, and it was kind of big in the news about, I guess I want to say 5 or 10 years ago. I can't, somewhere in there. What do you think happens? It's dark. Yeah, they eat their offspring. Someone guessed it. Yeah. They will literally eat their own young or completely abandon them. Or sometimes they just kill them and just leave them there. So, isn't that creepy? It's almost like it turns them sociopathic. So, yeah, this is a mom that had the FOSB gene turned on, completely off. See her young right here? She will not nurse them, will not take care of them. Sometimes if it's a rat, they will definitely eat them. They're nasty little things. Big things sometimes. So looking at the fixed action patterns, FAPs, these are originally assumed to be elicited by a sign stimulus. So we've talked about feedback mechanisms. We just got done doing a pogo there. We get a stimulus, there's a response. Increasingly, scientists have found this behavior to develop further after practice, whereas a learning behavior is a durable change in behavior brought about by an experience. An example of that is the pecking behavior in laughing gulls. This is with the mother nurturing the, I can't say infant, but the chick, and they do that in pecking each other's beak. And where and how closely the pecks are on the mother's beak will determine the learned behavior and the imprinting that's done on the mom. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm going to blow that up. Well, I'm breaking stuff. We'll show you. It's part of their imprinting on their mom and how they develop their relationship. In a way. So if you take a look at the pecking accuracy of a newborn, it's not very good. Big surprise, right? Kind of missing. And then the pecking accuracy of a 2-day-old is going to get more and more accurate. So as that chick gets older and spends more days in the nest, they develop a behavior of pecking at their mother's beak. The ones that would not would have died, right? And so this is sort of like how an infant, same thing happens in babies. Babies can only see like 20 inches in front of them, okay? And there's a reason for that, because they're trying to hone in on breastfeeding. That's all they do, okay? So at a certain age, that's the only thing that they need to worry about. So if you're like, you ever see people wave at a baby? Like from here to Emily, the baby would not see me at all. I would be a complete blur. Even from you to me, Joe, the baby would not, probably even Jason, the baby would not be able to see me or make me out. I would have to get like right here and go coochie, coochie, you know, and then you'd be able to see. So it's a very similar idea. Babies have that behavior. And as the world around the baby expands, just like in the nest, the baby starts to see farther away in that case and can make different shapes and different images out. Okay? But for the first 3 months, that's all they're worried about. Immediate 2 feet in front of them. And this does lead into imprinting. This is what we're talking about here. The imitation of behavior that's observed during a sensitive period. We're going to have chicks in here at the end of the year, ducklings, not chicks, at the end of the year. Okay? And they will imprint on us. That's just inevitably going to happen. But what they do, indirectly, they don't even realize they're doing it. Just like that pecking behavior, they're picking images out in their brain. If they look at, let's say, your face, and and you did this with your mom. How far away could you see when you were little? Like 20 inches, right? So now imagine what you did as a baby. You looked at every little contrasting point of your mom's face, and you imprinted on that. Just like the baby, just like the chick pecked at her mom's beak, you did the same thing at your mom's face and your dad's until you imprinted on them. And that's why you can pick your relative out of a crowd, right? Anybody, you just look at a crowd and you go, oh, I recognize them. You can do that instantly because you're picking those little points out, and your brain's doing that indirectly. It's kind of cool, kind of weird and creepy. We're like a computer. It's like we're data mining the crowd until we find who we're looking for. It's the same thing with facial recognition software. It's the same exact thing. Okay. What? You like that? Yeah. So goslings followed any moving object after birth, and this period of time in which a particular behavior develops is what is called the sensitive period. Your guys, our sensitive period is like that first, well, even 5 years is pretty sensitive. But up to about 4 years is where you develop your personality. And after the age of about 3 or 4, guess what? You are you. There's not much changing you. And that's biological. I know it sounds weird, but pretty much what you're going to be for the rest of your life is defined by the age of about 3.5. We like to tell people they can be anything and do anything, and you can, kind of, right? If your parents set you up to do anything. It's terrible, isn't it? It's awful to say. You can beat the odds, but the odds are against you if you don't get that initial nurture. So social interactions and learning. Avian bird is especially sensitive to acoustical stimuli during a sensitive period, so they're really listening. And the social experiences appear to have an even stronger influence over development of singing. So we know birds, especially songbirds, obviously are going to be prone to being influenced by song and sound. And this deals with the white-crowned sparrow is the one your book uses and how they sign during singing. Okay. And this leads into associative learning. This is any change in behavior that involves an association between two events. Anytime you can associate a behavior to an event occurring, it's associative. So you guys are going to be developing your own experiment with a waxworm. And the waxworms were alive. It was just so cold in here. I put them on my desk. They came back to life after about an hour. So, yeah, it's alive. Yeah. Hey, those ones on the desk were just too cold. It's how cold it was in here. It was like a fridge yesterday. What? Yeah, I know. So cold this morning, I hit a snowball and it smashed the front of my car. Never seen anything so ridiculous. I hate that car. I'm done with that car.
Well, now you associate snow with heartbreak.
Stupid car. Oh, all right. If you're listening to this YouTube video, I hit a giant ice ball and it smashed my car this morning. And I'm not over it yet. Obviously. So looking at classical conditioning, this is what you guys have probably looked at in psychology maybe a little bit, where the paired presentation of two different types of stimuli causes an animal to form an association between them. Ring a bell, dog does what? Salivates. Pavlov? No? Okay, all right. We'll talk more about that. Yes. So the classical, another example is the paired presentation of two different stimuli causes an animal to form an association between them, just like Pavlov's dogs salivated when presented with food. So Pavlov found that if you put food in front of a dog, it salivates. And if you ring a bell, something else happens, we'll talk more about that later. But give a dog food, it salivates, classical conditioning. Okay? So he also found, who has had psychology in here? Okay, so when we talk about Pavlov's dog, let me just give you the rundown of this. He found that if you gave the dog food, it would salivate. If you rang a bell and gave it food, then removed the food and only rang the bell, it would still salivate. So he could condition the dog based on a sound, not just the food, to trigger an actual salivation response. Yes. So the operative conditioning is where you gradually strengthen a stimuli response connection. And you can trick animals and train them this way. This is like 90% of what my sister does. They have to train animals to go on cue. They have to train birds to fly from A to B based on a learned behavior. They give them a treat, right? And whether or not they get the treat, they think they might get the treat when they go to that cued point. So they fly there anyway, whether there's a treat there or not. Same thing with Pavlov's dog. It's classic conditioning. When you say training an animal, you're simply conditioning them. You're messing with their mind in a way because they're too dumb. Right? They're an animal. They're not dumb, but I mean they're not like intelligent. Why? I don't know. It depends. They train moose, for God's sakes. They got the moose conditioned. Like they got these two male moose. They were moose calves. They've raised them. They're about almost a year old now, and they had to train them too because they've got to interact. They got to take blood samples from these things. They've got to, interact with them. So the dolphins, they actually train them to come up, flip over, so they can draw blood from them because they have to take blood samples. So looking at migratory behavior. When I talk about orientation, that's the ability to travel in a particular direction. Many birds use the sun or stars for cues. There's actually a material called magnetite that's found in the dirt and soil. That's how salmon will actually find their way back up a migration pattern and go right back to the exact same spot. When we talk about migration, that's long distance travel from one location to another. Your book talks about starling migration. I like talking about fish more. You guys know that. And then when we talk about navigation, how you get there, and that leads more to the magnetic field, where we talk about fish, like salmon species, actually using magnetite. And other birds do this as well. They use magnetite because they eat the fish, and it's all the same planet, all the same gravity. Right? So the ability to change direction in response to environmental cues, and to actually navigate and find your way in lieu of, let's say, the wind or climate or weather change. How in the world does a Kirtland warbler find its way from the Bahamas to northeast Michigan? That's weird, right? I don't think I could do that without Google. I'd be in trouble. Yeah. I ask for directions all the time. Except every now and then, you type something in, and it takes you on like a wild goose chase. It's only a wild goose chase if you're heading, north. Then it's a wild Canadian goose chase. And it'd have to be in the spring? No, yeah. That's a bad joke. Now I got to work on that one. There's more there though. Yep. And then you have cognitive learning. Learning through observation, imitation, and insight. This is where you actually use inference, where the animal is not just getting an automatic response, but they're actually learning and interacting with their observations. Solving a problem without prior experience, where an animal appears to draw upon prior experience with other circumstances to solve the problem. We know mice do this in mazes. Who's seen a mouse in a maze experiment, right? That's pretty much what we're talking about. They go down one path, they run into a wall, the next time they're more apt not to go down that same path. If you put a red color on that path, they will actually stay away from red-colored paths and only go on the green ones, let's say. So they will learn from prior experience, and that would be what's called insight learning, where they can foresee things happening. You catch a raccoon in a trap and let him go, he won't go in a trap again. I found that out. You got to get rid of them. You can get one chance at that. So then, the infamous question, do animals have emotions? As dumb as they are, they more than likely do. There is evidence of that. I don't like admitting this because then I have to care more about the animals, right? No? Makes me feel bad when I eat a hamburger. Not really. So the body language of animals can be interpreted to suggest that they have feelings. So a lot of times we personify animals. Do not personify a fish, though, right? I mean, there's some things you can personify, some things you cannot personify. We'll talk about that. So scientists believe that they have sufficient data to suggest that many vertebrates, definitely not all vertebrates. Notice we said vertebrates. Don't go petting a slug. All right, that's not, or a, or an insect. They're not. No, the turtle, yeah, vertebrate. That works. They can experience fear, joy, embarrassment, jealousy, love, anger, sadness, or fear. So, I think we've all seen this, right? Who has a cat or a dog at home? Raise your hand, right? Okay. All right. What? I'll actually just throw it out there. This will be fun. Let's see what examples of emotion you can give me. Tell me the emotion and what happens with your dog, animal, cat, turtle, tortoise, whatever. I got a big Burmese mountain dog. I tackle him in the snow, and if I come at him like this, he gets down low because he knows I'm going to grab him and throw him in the snow. Not in a mean way, but I wrestle him. He's 120 pounds right now. The dog's 6 months old. That's not right. You should not be 120 pounds after 6 months. It's big. They tell me he will get 190 pounds. That's bigger than me. It's like having Mr. Urich as a pet. Okay, that's just mean. I don't know who did it. I'm assuming you're joking or trying to be funny. That's that male testosterone hormone that we talked about earlier causing a behavior. Baby, get jealousy when Mobo get more attention and food than her. I don't know. She gets mad and she poops. Fear. Okay. Dogs. Who has an 18-year-old dog? Oh my goodness. Cat's purring out. Yep. Eyes light up when he sees a banana. So it's fear and love of bananas. He's part monkey. So is it pretty simple behavior with the reptile? Yeah, I figured. Yeah, they're pretty simple creatures. It doesn't like see you and get all happy, does it? No. My dog gets excited. Okay. See the dog? Yeah. What's my next pet's name, Mr. Urich? I don't care what it is. You're like a fish. Has to be a simple creature, right? Can't be anything too complicated. He's gonna get so mad. I tease him all the time. Happy when you get home and they jump out? Yeah. Cat likes to play. Smother the cat. I love it when little kids, like, not hurt animals, but when they, like, drag a cat around, you know. I will, like, give my cat to my nieces. I'll be like, here, play with this. And take it around the yard with his feet like this. Poor cat. Yeah. He's happy his tail wags, yeah. Guilty when he... Yeah, I like it when they look guilty, when they know they did something wrong. You walk in, you look at them, they're like, what did I do? Okay. Cat gets angry and attacks people. We had a cat that attacked people. Okay, we're going to pause there.